Hi, this is Greg with Lionquestfitness. Today, let's talk a little bit about capacity. How much? Is the capacity of a 5-shot or 6-shot revolver, is that enough for self-defense? Or should you be carrying something that's high capacity? Let's talk about it. Well, no shooting this week. I've been at war with the yellow jackets that have infested my berm, and I've been having to take it apart and dismantle it. But I will show you what I've been carrying here lately. Now, being summertime, wearing shorts, pocket carry. I've been carrying Rosie here, 1963 Chief Special, and it is loaded. Got precision specialty grips on it. And Rosie has been through the war somewhat. Got some nicks, dings, and scratches. But I've worked on the finish. It's a nickel finish and got it polished up. And it's a very good shooting gun. Mechanically, it's in very, very sound condition. Now, I belt carry. I've been carrying an old trusty standby, nicknamed Blondie. I've had for quite a few years now, Taurus 605, 357. And in Rosie, I've been carrying Critical Defense 110 grain plus P38. In Blondie here, I've been carrying Critical Defense 357, 125 grain. And these two guns are predominantly what I've been carrying. I will add the good old trusty Glock 19 Gen 3. This is what I carry when I go to church, since I'm part of our church security. So let's talk a little bit about capacity. How much capacity, what type of firearm should you carry? Now, when it comes to capacity, what you have to determine, number one, what are the laws in your jurisdiction? That's the first thing. All right. Second thing, what type of firearm are you proficient with? And number three, what type of firearm will you carry on a consistent basis? And last but not least, do a study. What are the things that could happen to you in the life you lead, in the place you live? And that may change at different times depending what you're doing and your responsibilities. I live in a relatively low crime area. We do have crime here. We do have drugs and problems here. But compared to other places, it's not a high crime area. So looking at all the things that I could face, that I might face, animal attacks, particularly dog attacks, is something that could happen. Strong arm robbery is another possibility, although statistically rare. Certain areas of where I live, that could be a possibility. All right. Those are the two things that I need to be most cognizant and aware of. Now, depending on where you live, it might be other things. But this is what you have to take into consideration when you work out your self-defense planning. Now, actual self-defense statistics, how many shots fired, it's hard to come by. And too often you compare citizen self-defense to law enforcement self-defense, where you have an outlier with a hardened criminal who does not want to go back to jail. And there's a big difference in what the average citizen might face. Most criminals want easy victims. That's the law of the jungle. The sick, the distracted, the weak. That's who criminals prey on. If you're putting up a fight, the opportunity costs are not there for that criminal. And you have to think about that. Now, there are literally hundreds of thousands to maybe millions of self-defense situations every year involving firearms where It is just the presentation of that firearm without firing that stops the threat or attack. And statistically, for a citizen defender to actually fire is relatively rare. Now let's look at some law enforcement statistics that might be appropriate for the citizen defender. And I took this from a book by Claude Warner that details the off-duty shootings at LAPD with almost 9,000 officers, but the off-duty shootings that occurred between 2005 and 2019. Now, these were broken down into 3 categories. One was actual self-defense situations when these officers were not on duty. Some of these instances were attacks by animals. And last but not least, you had negligent discharges. Now, there were 21 total cases looked at in the after-action report that was filed by LAPD. It's a very good book. I recommend it. You can find this on Claude Warner's website as an e-book. But one of the things that jumped out to me was statistically the amount of rounds fired was very low, especially for the self-defense situations. You know, the mean was only 1 shot. There were a couple of times where it was 6 shots. All right. But then you go down to the animal attacks, and the mean was 2 shots. However, one thing you had to look at, there was one incident where a panther had taken an off-duty officer's dog and carried it up into a tree, and it took 11 shots to take that animal down. But the amount of rounds fired was very minuscule compared to what we think of when we think that we have to have a lot of capacity everywhere we go. Now, the bottom line is you have to carry what you feel comfortable in carrying, whether it's something lower capacity or higher capacity. You know, it is always a trade-off between comfort and concealability and capacity. So these are decisions that you have to make with your best judgment and taking into consideration where you live and the things that you may actually face. And this is Greg with Lionquest Fitness.